Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We just came off a show last week, Christy, that we actually featured an article that you had written about our guest, Lucas Meacham.
Yes,
in the
and thank you for
podcast.
mentioning that.
When you interviewed him, you were over at the Aberdeen Times.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it was a really good article, and he made I think a very good impression, and he made a very good impression on Keegan Foyles, the young lady who's a senior, who's a scholarship winner at Methodist University.
Yeah, he was so great with her when he was here.
Yeah, and thanks for setting that show up.
You're welcome.
You're actually going 2 for 2 because the guests that are with us today were a result of some conversations you and I had had. Neil Copeland is here from Seven Lakes Kennels, and thanks for introducing me to him. And Neil, in turn, has introduced us to Barnes Brooks, who is the treasurer for Caring Hearts for Canines. And even though you were not here a couple of years ago, we've had some shows in the past about pet overpopulation, no-kill shelters, lots of things that have come up in some of the newspapers over the years, talking about spaying and neutering dogs and cats, what children can learn from pet adoption. Anyway, with all of that being said, there are a lot of nonprofit groups in Moore County that look after the pet population and do their very best to make sure that, and in the case of today's guest, that dogs find good homes. My kid sister, who lives in New York, has a rescue dog that she got from Tennessee. Oh, no. And
Aww.
She lives in Manhattan. And I'll tell you, this rescue dog lucked out. That sometimes these pets get treated better than people.
Like my pet.
True.
He's a rescue.
It
and,
is unbelievable.
Yeah, Jacob is spoiled.
Yeah. Jeannie lives in New York City, at a very nice address, and the dogs in the building are treated honestly better than some people sometimes. I just can't believe there's an underbelly to that too, because there's so many dogs that kind of fly under the radar and don't find good homes, even here in Moore County. But the effort to try to find them good homes doesn't stop, and it costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of just in my area where I live in Seven Lakes. There's cats everywhere.
So
feral cats.
Yeah, and you are a pet owner.
Yes.
That's an understatement.
I know.
Right?
2 dogs, 3 cats.
They rent to you. I think.
Yeah, Christy and I have had multiple conversations about her pet.
Yes, we
Haven't
have.
We, Christy?
The Christmas puppy. the fur-lined chewing machine is what I call it.
Well, we're going to talk about how that happened, how that adoption happened. But you just heard Neil voice in. So, Neil, I want to say good morning and thanks for coming in.
Oh, no. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's set the stage just a little bit. Tell me about Seven Lakes Kennels, what you do, how you got here, and how you evolved, because you were a medic in the military.
Correct. I was a medic in the military, and I was a respiratory therapist. And so the later years of my military career, I become a reservist. Okay. And so I was in Springfield, Missouri.
Right.
And I worked what was considered to be weekend option at the hospital in an ER as a respiratory therapist, and I would train dogs through the week in my backyard.
Really?
Well, as I progressed through that, word of mouth gets around. You start training retrievers for duck hunting, and that's what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So I had sold a dog to a gentleman up in St. Louis, and he was friends with with Anheuser-Busch. And ultimately, what happened was that then we progressed through that, and then I ended up training dogs for them for several years as the retriever trainer. And then as K2 Solutions here in Southern Pines, as they progressed with their IDD contract, Improvised Detector Dog Program, what they did was that they reached out across the country to many retriever trainers and brought us to this area.
Yeah.
And that was 7 years ago. And I worked for them for 7 years.
You must have known Stacy.
Yeah, I know Stacy.
Okay. Okay.
And so then then from there on, I left K2 2017 of last year.
Right.
And I was training dogs out there by Seven Lakes Kennels, doing a little obedience stuff. And one of the prior owners walked up and said, hey, I've got an obedience client potentially for you. And I said, hey, would you ever be interested in selling Seven Lakes Kennels? And I said, well, And he said, yeah, we would be interested.
Huh.
So what I did is I went to them and worked there for 3 or 4 months to find out kind of what I was getting into, because I've always wanted to be able to have my own boarding facility. You know, the passion for pets. I've you know, not only served people, but I've also served pets. And so then we progressed and went in, and then I ended up purchasing the place in October, and it's been an absolute fantastic experience.
So you look to me like you're in your late 30s, early 40s. Is that about right?
And I just turned 40 years old on February 10th.
Okay, so you used a key word there that is really important, and you said something that you were passionate. It was a passion of yours. And that's the greatest gift, to be able to do what you're passionate about.
Oh, it's absolute freedom,
right?
Isn't it? I mean, that's what we all want to do.
It's not a job.
It's not a job. And the people that walk through those doors every day, you know, and hopefully they sense that.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
So Seven Lakes Kennel, you bought it in October.
I did.
And you specialize in what?
We specialize in boarding, so you can bring guests to us, and if you're going on a day, you know, we offer daycare, and then we also, if you can leave for an extended period of time, we can have your pet as a guest, and then from there we've progressed, because I bring the skill set of training. Then we also offer training as well,
okay.
And then we offer professional grooming. So it's kind of an all-in-one stop.
Okay, so let's talk about Christy's dog, and let's talk about the issues that she has, because this dog is not ready for grooming. This dog needs some training.
Yeah.
Have you had conversations with her about that?
So we certainly have, and hopefully Christy's in there just nodding her head like, yeah.
This dog, I've seen this dog. This dog is so willful, smart, has its own mind.
Understatement.
I remember as a kid I had beagles, and beagles were really stubborn.
Oh, they're really bad.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
But this dog has a little bit of beagle brain in him. Very hard nosed.
Last night I let him out, and he did his stuff. Came back in, and then peed right in front of me in front of the door.
Congratulations.
On the carpet.
That's great.
That's
Lovely.
a gift.
I think
Lovely.
you need to bring him to Neil. I can vouch, because my dogs board with Neil whenever I need to leave town. So in addition to providing caring hearts for canines with his services, Neil also takes care of my slightly willful dogs.
Yeah.
Lily and Charlie, yeah.
One of whom is a beagle as well.
Oh my gosh, you poor thing.
So Barnes has been sitting here very politely waiting to speak. She is the treasurer for Caring Hearts for Canines, but you lit up when she started talking about the things she's having going on with her puppy, but there's joy in it, because you know that she's going to get from here to there.
Yes, yeah. Well, it sounds like you're providing a very good home, which we're in the business of trying to find.
No, the dog is providing a home to Christy. You don't understand.
Exactly.
The dog
I just
runs
sleep
the house.
there. That's it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens, which is why we need Neil's services.
Yes.
Neil provides Caring Hearts with Canines for canines with an option when we run out of room. And
Okay, so that's where the synergy is between
correct.
the two of you. Okay.
Correct. So Caring Hearts for Canines has its own shelter,
Okay.
which was made possible through the generosity of several of our very good donors.
Right. Private funding.
It's all privately funded.
Yeah.
And we're an all-volunteer organization.
Yeah.
So everyone who works in the kennel or walks our dogs or drives them from the kennel up to the vet for their health checks is all volunteer.
Okay. One of the I don't want to get away from Christy's dog for just a second. So a friend of mine had a dog and went out one night and decided it was part traveling salesman, and evidently came back, and lo and behold, a couple of months later, this dog gave birth to, I think there were 10 puppies in the litter. Is that right, Christy? There were 10, and it was part.
She's a golden lab, and evidently the father is a German Shepherd.
Right.
Actually, a Shepherdor.
A Shepherdor?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So 5 or 6 of the dogs look like Goldens, and 4 or 5 of them look like German Shepherds.
Yes.
Okay, and you got one that looked like a Golden.
Yes.
Okay. So 10 puppies, she gave them away. But isn't this part of the problem? Like, oh my gosh, how is our area going to absorb 10 more dogs from a private house?
It's a huge problem. Spaying and neutering is something that we really try to educate people about, the importance of. The number of puppies that are abandoned in boxes on the side of the road is just tremendous.
Heartbreaking.
This is puppy season. So it's a very busy time for us at the shelter. We can't actually take all of the puppies that people call us about. And the alternative, unfortunately, often is that they wind up in high kill shelters.
Right.
So we really encourage people to spay and neuter their animals. We were speaking before the show about the Spay Neuter Clinic here in the Sandhills.
That's right.
It's a wonderful service to our community.
That's right.
We're so very happy that they're here and that they can provide those low-cost options for people to spay and neuter their pets, and also to vaccinate them for rabies, which is a very important thing to have do. Especially if you have children in your household, you certainly don't want an unvaccinated animal around your family.
So the advice is, if you have a pet, and it's a household pet, you don't know where it's going to go when it leaves the house. Spay and neuter.
Yeah, I mean,
always.
you just you got to be responsible about it.
Right.
Pet ownership is not just having cuddly furry guy at your feet all night. It takes a responsibility, and that is part of the responsibility, is just making sure that you have accountability of what your pet is doing at all times. And so if we can limit the amount that we have to, that Caring Hearts for Canines is having to fund and do, then we're able to do that, right? And that is through a spay and neuter program. And so, this organization that we currently work with, Caring Hearts for Canines, we offer those spaces available for them when they do run out of space. But there's so much that's going on in irresponsibility.
We Caring Hearts for Canines, since our inception in late 2014, has rescued and rehomed over 2,500 dogs.
Oh,
currently, we do between 500 and 600 dogs a year.
How many?
500 and 600 dogs a year.
That's incredible.
The majority of which are from the Moore County area. So, and we can't do everything everybody calls us about. The numbers are just off the charts. And so what we try to do is get into the schools and civics groups and public events to try to educate not just people but their children about responsible pet ownership, how important it is to spay and neuter those animals, and to try to cut down on that proliferation of unwanted pets, which is a real problem.
Yeah, it is a real problem. However, I'll tell you a real success story that just happened.
Love to hear one.
So we just had a little pit bull, American Staffordshire Terrier, staying with us, and there was this awesome family over in Seven Lakes that found this puppy, took the puppy to the vet, right? Through this organization, Caring Hearts for Canines, they were able to place the dog in our facility for roughly, I would say, a month and a half. I mean, it was a good time. But this family took this dog in. They have 2 other dogs at home, and what they were doing is that we had to heal the dog. So we're providing medication to the dog. We're able to also get it out, help socialize it, make sure that it's in a safe place. Right. And then the family would come 2 or 3 times a day, or 2 or 3 times a week, and then be able to take it off site and start integrating it with their dogs that they currently have at home.
And that's a tremendously important part of rescue, right, is socialization and training, to be able to have someone like Neil that we can take dogs to who, haven't had the best background, right? So some of them don't know how to sit and stay. They're
Christy, are you hearing that? Sit and stay.
Well, there's no hope for Christy.
Like Christie's, we have housebreaking issues, that sort of thing, and Neil can put those dogs on the right track, and that's going to give them the opportunity to find a good home.
Yeah, you talk about one extreme, the romance and the beauty of a child having a new puppy come into the home, and the love and the cheers, and it's sort of offset by the vision that you painted by saying we find puppies in cardboard
Yeah.
boxes on the street.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know, everyone loves a puppy, and then they grow up.
Right.
And it's a responsibility. It's a lifelong responsibility.
Christy, taking notes?
Yes.
And so we encourage people as well, you know, when they're thinking about a puppy, to really consider the fact that they're going to have that animal for not, you know, a year until it grows out of its cute little fuzzy face.
Right.
But, you know, for its lifetime, which is, you know, hopefully
Right.
going to be 12 or 15 years.
Right.
So that's a long commitment.
I remember as a kid, we, my brother and I, we went out one day and we came home with a beagle puppy. And my mother was ready to disown us because we hadn't gotten permission. I was in high school. He was a junior in junior high school. And we bought the beagle from a shopping mall. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think this beagle's nervous system was severely compromised. This beagle needed a psychiatrist. It needed psychotherapy. This thing would run around in circles and chase its tail. And, of course, my father said, oh, let the boys, it would be a good responsibility. They can take care of them. Well, but I had basketball. Mm-hmm. I had things to do at school. I was a busy guy. And I forgot. And we just didn't care enough for the dog. The dog was nuts.
Yeah.
It probably was inbred.
It needed Neil.
It needed Neil.
Well, I'll
And
tell
I
you
didn't-
what.
No. But we learned a lesson, but you know, kids love the puppy, but then the responsibility, you've got to follow through.
Well, it's wonderful to try to put children in charge of those
Right.
sorts of things. And certainly
Right.
my own daughter has responsibilities. She helps me feed the dogs and walk the dogs and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's the adult's responsibility to make sure those things get done, right? And it is a time commitment. It's a huge time commitment.
Yeah, that's right. But I got to get back to here. And there's a lesson that he learned in this whole story.
Yeah.
Is that it was best to ask for forgiveness than permission when it came to this beagle.
Well,
Absolutely. Oh,
I think.
especially with your parents. Always.
Always.
Just say, hey, we did this, and we'll make it right. Yeah, after the fact.
After the fact.
Absolutely.
But, hey, beagles do not. I mean, they make good pets, but let's think about what they are, because since we're kind of on that subject about choosing
hunting dogs.
they're a hunting dog, and
Right.
choosing the right breed for your family is so important.
Right.
And we have these,
Yes.
these discussions all the time. And can you build a protection dog for me? Can I get a Cane Corso when I have 2 children in the house?
Right.
All of these different breeds serve different purposes.
Right.
And a hound, right?
Hounds are difficult. We see a lot of
Yeah.
hounds. We see a lot of hounds. I myself have an adopted beagle. So I know the
do you?
struggle. I'm familiar.
It's a big struggle. You know,
I'm
I had
familiar
one.
with it.
I had one, and those dogs tend to follow their nose. You know, if they're following their nose and they smell that squirrel, no matter how much you're calling for them, they're not going to hear you.
Christy's-
They're not good off leash.
Yeah, the dogs just follow their nose.
They do.
Regardless of us.
So so containing your pet is certainly an issue that needs to be addressed. Our founder, Jennifer Johnston Chopin, is a fan of the beagles.
Okay.
So and we pull a lot of them from high kill shelters.
Yep.
I think Neil's probably familiar with the fact that there are many folks who use them as hunting dogs, and one of the issues that we see in this community, unfortunately,
Right.
is that toward the end of their career as a hunting dog, many times those animals are just left abandoned.
Yeah, with the beagle itself. So when I was a young man at like 14, 15, my dad and I would hunt with these beagles, right?
Right.
Well, we did with what's called the National Rabbit Hound Association, okay? And we participated and we competed in that. And we won the world championships 3 times. Wow. So when it comes to me thinking about a beagle as a pet, when you turn him out the back door, his nose is to the floor and gone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then people call me up and say, hey, I have this beagle, but I want it to recall. I want it to, if it's following its nose, I want it to come back to me. You're fighting nature at that point as well.
Sure.
Can it be done? Absolutely. But you are fighting nature.
Yeah. Let's come back in the second set. I want to talk about obedience training. I want to talk about child training, like for me, what I needed to do. I love the ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
We're talking all about Seven Lakes Kennel and Caring Hearts for Canine, and a lot of the issues associated with pets, their overpopulation, their care, and the good lessons you can learn from pet ownership. This is All Things Moore County. It's time to break for our special segment of Safe and Sound, safety tips for citizens of Moore County with retired Secret Service and Drug Enforcement Agent Doug Tuxbury.
Welcome to More Safe and Sound. I'm Doug Tuxbury. The purpose of this podcast is to provide you with information that you can use to keep yourself and your loved ones safe and sound. Consider this your Community Watch message. I hope you find the information to be useful. I never imagined that I would have to talk about what to do in the event of a mass shooting, active shooter. Most of us will never be in a situation like this. However, just like having an escape plan from your home in the event of a fire, we should have a plan in the unlikely event we find ourselves in a situation of this magnitude. The recent anniversary for the mass shooting that took place at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, was February 14th. A year later, almost to the day, on February 16th of this year, a mass shooting took place in Aurora, Illinois. These two events prompted me to talk about this type of shooting. What I found to be very interesting as well as disturbing is that studies show that between 1982 and 2011, a mass shooting took place every 200 days. However, the number of mass shootings between 2011 and 2014 occurs every 64 days. Studies also show that some of the contributing factors that may work together to create a fertile environment for mass murder include higher accessibility and ownership of guns, mental illness and its treatment or lack thereof, the desire to seek revenge for a long history of being bullied, the widespread chronic gap between people's expectations for themselves and their actual achievement, the desire for fame and notoriety, the copycat phenomenon, and the failure of government background checks due to incomplete databases, sharing of information, and staff shortages. As a result of these mass shootings, law enforcement has changed the way they respond to these incidents. These changes were effected to save lives and engage the shooter as quickly as possible. As civilians, there are three responses for us to take in the event we find ourselves in a mass shooting active shooter event. Run and escape. Getting away from the shooter or shooters is a top priority. Leave your belongings behind. Help others escape if possible. Upon exit, warn and prevent others from entering the area where the active shooter may be. Call 911 when you're safe. Provide as much information as possible, such as the number of shooters, a description of the shooters, and their location. Hide if escaping is not possible. Get out of the shooter's view and stay quiet. Silence all electronic devices. Lock and block doors. Close blinds. Turn off lights. Stay away from the windows. Do not hide in groups. Spread out along the walls. Try to communicate with law enforcement silently. Use text message, social media to tag your location. Stay in place until law enforcement gives you the all clear. Your hiding place should be out of the shooter's view and provide protection if shots are fired in your direction. This is the difference between cover and concealment. If your location only conceals your location, you are not protected from gunfire. Cover not only conceals your location, it provides protection from gunfire. Last resort, fight. Commit to your actions and act aggressively as possible. Recruit others to attack the shooter. Grab anything you can to use as a weapon. Be prepared to cause severe or even lethal injury to the shooter. Do whatever it takes to distract or disarm the shooter, such as throwing items or use improvised weapons. After the active shooter has been resolved, follow these steps for law enforcement. Keep hands visible and empty. Know that law enforcement will shout commands and even push people to the ground for their safety. Follow law enforcement instructions and evacuate as directed. Take care of yourself first, and then assist others that may be wounded before first responders arrive. If injured or in immediate danger, help get them to safety. Provide first aid to others while waiting for first responders. Finally, consider professional help when coping with an incident of this magnitude. Remember to always be aware of your surroundings. If you see something that is suspicious, say something to authorities as soon as possible. If you have a topic you would like for me to address, please email me at moresafeandsound@gmail.com. That's MOORESAFEANDSOUND@gmail.com. That's it for this podcast. I'm Doug Tuxbury. Stay safe.
I think we're back.
Yes, we're back.
You were blowing me out of there. Okay. A lot of conversation in between sets, speaking about dog training, talking about Seven Lakes Kennels, talking with Barnes Brooks from the Caring Hearts for Canines. Let's go back a little bit to obedience tips for
Okay.
pet homeowners. I mean,
Sure.
because your boarding facility, yes, you board, yes, you help when there's an overflow, but you also have people who have dogs who are trying to break them in, and
Yeah.
they come to you, and you're their guru, their teacher. What do you tell people? What are
Well-
the most common issues that come up with puppies?
Sure. So most common is that I used to go to people's homes for obedience, and I don't currently do that, and here's why. I went to people's homes and I would start over day 2 or 3. Okay, I'd say be back in a couple of days. Here's your homework. Well, the consistency that was there when I left is the same consistency of why you were calling me, right? So what I do now is that I offer a board and train program there at the kennel, and what I do is I bring people in, or bring the dog in for 2 weeks. I reset their brain a little bit, get them away from all of those behaviors that they are currently doing, and I reset it. And then I work with that owner going forward after that. And the common things that I see are generally walking on a leash, pulling, jumping, typical behaviors that can be modified or extincted as a puppy, but people don't have the knowledge when they're going forward as a puppy, because what I tell people is that when you see a puppy at 8, 9 weeks of age and you bring it home, if you allow him to jump on you, guess what? At 2 years, he's jumping on you, right? And so now you're calling a professional to help you with that. And so within that 2 weeks, I generally get him walking easy on a leash, and I use my current dog that I have at home to help me in that process, to build confidence in your dog and to help me train the dog along with it. So when we're walking down the road, I first teach your dog the behaviors of walking nice and easy on the leash, and then I introduce my dog, and so it adds a new distraction. So, that's, and I would say walking on the leash, and then just basic citizenship, just sit when I ask you to sit, or a recall, a lot of questions about, okay, hide distracted areas, chasing a squirrel when I say here or come, whatever the cue is, I want the dog to spin and come back to me. And that's
this is a really important thing, because we see a lot of animals ending up in the shelters because they grow out of their puppy phase and into an adult dog, and they're bigger and they're stronger, and they've had no obedience training,
Right.
and people can't handle them. They
Right.
lose control.
Right.
And very, very few of them reach out to folks like Neil for that extra help, and these animals end up at a shelter.
So what if you have a pet come in and you put them on the 2-week training and boarding?
Yep.
You basically keep them out of the house. What kind of, if I may ask, what kind of a cost would be involved with that?
Well, right now, so for 2 weeks, and I'm running kind of a special type thing, but honestly, I mean, they go up if you call around, but right now I'm at $500 for 2 weeks. That includes your boarding and training.
Right.
And you can come and you can involve yourself in any of my training going forward.
Right.
The thing I tell people is that I'm not going to chase you down. When we get done with the 2 weeks and we've worked together, so that 2 weeks, you don't just leave your pet on it. You come back in a couple of days, then you come back in a couple of days later, and we work with each other for that 2 weeks. And then we progress after the 2 weeks with each other at no additional cost.
Okay.
My deal is that I'm offering this service because I truly enjoy training animals,
Right.
and I truly enjoy people. Right. And when you see that together, when you see a happy individual with their pet and they're doing the right things, the smile on their face is incredible. And
Okay, can we go back to Christy for a minute? I want to go back to
All
her
right.
dog again.
Let's do it.
So she works full time. She has a daughter who's in, I guess, 5th grade, 6th grade?
Yes.
Okay. Does not have the ability to be consistent, like you talked about, consistency in training.
Yep.
And her time is money, and that dog is left home alone during the day.
Right. So, Christy, I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit, is that, there are some things that we do at the kennel called supervised play groups in daycare. So when you have a puppy that's left unattended at home, you could bring him a couple days a week, and he gets that socialization and confidence.
Sort of like Rugrats.
It's exactly.
I'm thinking about doing that.
And so you
quite
bring
honestly.
them, and these dogs get to have fun, and we supervise it as opposed to dog parks. So that's something that we offer, and then also, we've just talked about multiple things with your dog, Christy. We just need to get him on the right track.
Absolutely.
How is raising a dog different from a child? It's all about the tenets are the same. Consistency.
Yep.
You got to be there. Discipline.
Yep.
But kids pick up when their parents are inconsistent. Then they realize what they can get away with.
Sure.
Well,
right.
you don't want to set them up for failure,
Right,
right?
right.
So you try to do it right from the get-go.
Be fair,
right?
don't you? Be fair.
And I think for some reason in people's minds, with a dog, it's different. And it's not. It's absolutely the same as having a child with regard to the commitment and making sure that they're taken care of properly with regard to discipline and consistency.
It's a family member,
It
right?
is.
So
It is. They are.
in the industry that I'm in, I take it very seriously, and I know that you guys do as well, as far as this is a family member. This is something that we take that
Right.
extra step. So when you're having anxiety at home because of behaviors that you can't control your animal and stuff, some of that is, it's all created at home, right? And so you're not allowing your children to do that so much. Just like in the 2-week board and train, give an example. People don't want to leave their dog with me for 2 weeks, but they send their kids away for 2-week camps during the summer.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's how important animals are to people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I understand that, and we're sensitive to that.
Yeah. There are plenty of studies that are very well documented that talks about the value of pet companionship for people of all different ages. I mean, it's a no-brainer. They bring a ton of value to the process. But the underbelly of what Neil's talking about is the strays, the puppies that
Right.
have grown up, that are undisciplined, that are abandoned.
Sure.
And they wind up either at the shelters and if you turn the page, that reality is not so happy.
No, it's not. So Caring Hearts for Canines steps into that fold, right? And we take in the dogs.
Right.
We make sure that they've had proper veterinary care.
Right.
We have a shelter, and we also have a very large foster network. Many times we'll have dogs that for special circumstances aren't suited to a shelter type atmosphere. Mothers with litters of puppies, for instance. We're fortunate enough to have fosters who will step in and bring those puppies to their home until they're old enough to be adopted out. So in that respect, it is a huge time commitment.
So there's a lot to understand, but the reality is that the expense, too, of having dogs that are abandoned. I mean, there's a cost for you to care for them, to get them to foster homes, and I don't think people talk enough about the cost of overpopulation.
Right. So it costs us probably in the neighborhood of $150 per dog.
Yeah, I knew you would be able to quantify it.
when once from the time we receive that animal until the time it finds its forever home.
Right.
Probably 65% of the dogs that we adopt out go north to their forever homes.
Okay.
We have an extensive network of partner shelters in the Northeast that adopt those animals out on our behalf.
Is it because the pet overpopulation is more of a problem in the South than it is in the North?
It is. In the South, there are less stringent regulations with regards to licensing, spaying, neutering,
Okay.
and those things that contribute to the population.
That's a problem right there.
It is, and so it's funny in the rescue world. It's called the the underground dog railroad. And
Right.
it's a very common, you
Makes
were
sense.
talking about your daughter who has a
My
dog
sister.
from, or your sister who has a dog from Tennessee. And undoubtedly that dog went the same route that many of the southern dogs do up north to find their forever home. And that's in large part because the shelters there don't have as many animals in them.
And again, I would like to interject here for a second. So we haven't discussed how difficult it is to find volunteers as well.
It is.
For
point.
volunteer work it's hard to find people to bring these animals into their homes.
Yeah. And
so if you could expand on that for just a second, because I think it's good.
So the foster homes are absolutely essential to what we do. Between the shelter and Neil's facilities and the foster homes, we're able to provide a pretty good net for those at-risk dogs. But, it's puppy season is coming around, and when we get asked to take litter upon litter upon litter, we just simply can't do it without people who are willing to volunteer their time. And not only is it a volunteering to take on a pretty big project, but it's a long commitment. I mean, we have those puppies until they're old enough to be able to go on to their forever homes.
Wow.
So, without those volunteers, and we need volunteers to help with the kennel, and we need volunteers to help walk the dogs. And so, yeah, absolutely. And if anyone is interested in volunteering for us, please visit our website and sign up.
And what is that website?
That's at caringheartsforcanines.com.
Yeah.
And please, sign up and tell us how you'd like to help us. There are always things that that folks can do to help us out.
It's a great organization too.
And you have a Facebook page as well?
We do. We have a Facebook page as well.
So
Caring
people
Hearts
can
for
go.
Canines. Yeah.
Okay. Fundraising. Raising monies, and time is short, but it's a challenge, isn't it?
It is a challenge. We have limited resources. We do the best we can with the limited resources we have. We are always looking for people who want to support the cause. We do several annual events a year. We're always looking for folks that have ideas to help us raise money. And again, if you'd like to do that, please go to our website, caringheartsforcanines.com, and contact us. If you're interested in donating, we are a nonprofit, so that donation is tax deductible.
Yeah. Do you spend time going into the schools and talking to students?
I personally do not.
But your organization.
But yes, our organization does. Yes, right. Jennifer goes to the schools. She'll
very
do
important.
The Scouts and other civic organizations in the area. We do a lot of public events, and that community outreach is important because the change is going to be made with the younger generation.
That's right.
Right.
And learning at a very formidable stage in their development.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it makes a big impact on a kid when they see an animal that's in distress because it's been abandoned.
Yeah. Neil, I bet that if you ever decided to approach some of the schools and go and speak to some of the 3rd and 4th graders especially, because that's the age when they are getting things.
Absolutely.
To talk about obedience, talk about pet care. It would be a grassroots effort, but it would really help because the younger you start, the more effective
Well,
it
I
would
think
be.
that's a great investment in our community, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, that grassroots is an investment in your community, and that's what we want to do. I mean, we want to improve things. We don't want to keep it as is.
Right.
So, thank you for bringing that up, and I certainly will.
And it's more than just spaying and neutering too, right?
Yeah.
It's the issues of caring for our canine companions, making sure that they're vaccinated properly, making sure that one of the huge issues in the South is heartworm prevention, right?
Okay.
The number of animals, the number of dogs with heartworm is it's epidemic. It's epidemic, and people just don't realize how bad it is, and it's a death sentence for the dogs eventually. Now they can be treated for it, and they can live very happy, healthy lives. But it's a big expense.
Yeah.
That's something that our organization does on a limited basis. because we have finite resources.
Sure.
But we do take a number of heartworm positive dogs and treat them and adopt them out, and they live happy, healthy lives.
Yep.
But that's something that we like to talk to the community about.
Yep. Barnes, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing with us. Really, you speak
Thank
beautifully.
you for having me.
Very passionate. And Neil, I want to just ask you about Seven Lakes Kennels. How can people reach you?
Yeah, so I mean, people can get on our website at sevenlakeskennels.org, or you can call us at 910-673-2060.
Right.
And you can get a hold of us at any time if you need some services. And I also just encourage people to, if they just want to ask some questions, I am perfectly fine with helping people out. That's what I do. That's why I'm in this business. So
Yeah. Both of you share one trait in common, and that is you're both very passionate about this topic, and it shows in between the lines. It just comes through. And when you're passionate, it's not a job.
that's right.
Right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Neil Copeland, thank you for coming in, and Barnes
thank
Brooks, we
you.
appreciate it. I hope people take heed, and pets are a great thing to have in your home. Great animals, great lessons for their kids. Just be responsible and be consistent. This is All Things Moore County. We'll talk to you next week.